Hello, everyone. This is Hua, and welcome back. Happy Halloween Horror Month to you. Today, I will be reading a historical horror fiction I put together for your enjoyment. This is told in first person shifting point of view in the time of 1492. So I hope that you will enjoy with me. Please help support me by subscribing, and if you like the story, help share. Thank you.
I was wrong, the words I spoke. I've been saying many things that are hurtful. Your tear-shed eyes, your fragile mind. Guess I'll be dancing on my own tonight. I know
King Ormond. My king, the doors will be broken soon, and our men are dying at the front line. You must take the queen and go. You are the only hope left for our people. If you should perish, the bloodline of your heritage will disappear with you. I watched my captain of the guard on his knees, bloody from the battle, as I reached down and helped him to a standing position. His armor had been pierced, blood gushing from his wounds, and his handsome face covered in splatters of gut and dirt. Ulrich, it has been my honor to stand beside you, I whispered, his eyes filled with tears. And it has been my honor to live at yours, my king. I took his hand and pulled him toward me for a hug. The embrace of two men who had fought fearlessly through hundreds of battles, beheading enemies that fell like ants, and winning glory time and again. It had come down to this, and the world had been itching to remove me. But the last battle still had yet to be won. I could not leave my land to become a sacrifice to those who wanted to tear me down. Ulrich, I leave the queen in your hands. And I shoved him down the hole where my lady was waiting for me, pregnant with my son. As Ulrich's screams echoed and soon ended with a cry, "My woman," I saw her beautiful face coming to the light from the bottom of the tunnel. "My king!" she cried. "How dare you leave me? You promised me that you would be at my side until the end of time. What lies your tongue speaks." I felt my eyes fill with tears as my heart broke. "My queen, I have uttered to you a promise of lies. Forgive me, my lady, for I cannot do as I promised. Ulrich would take you with him and keep you safe." "No," she cried. "If you are even an ounce of a man, you will come down here and you bring me to safety. Your unborn son needs his father's eyes to look into." "I love you, my queen. You are the beat of my heart, and the only thing pure left in this evil world. Live well, my love." Her cries echoed to my ears as I moved the latch to close the door. As I stood up, I heard the loud flapping of the dragon wings, and as I looked up to the skies, the evil sorceress Kuang came down with her flowing black hair and seductive smile. She raised her hands, and small fires began forming from the palms. "My king, you dare to escape from me? How insulting," she said with a smile. "Remove yourself from my grounds, witch." Laughing, she replied, "Why do you treat me as if you have not yet tasted my flesh? A man will always be weak by the sight of a woman's thigh." I removed my sword from my side and brought it to her neck, ready to behead her any time. But the gaze she held told me fear was nothing of her concern. "Go ahead," she threatened. "Go ahead, my king. The blade has been yearning for the taste of my blood. You have killed my people. What more do you want?" Her eyes darkened, and then smoke started rising from the pores of her skin. She screamed, and small little snakeheads started emerging from her pores, hissing with their forked tongues. I backed away as her eyes turned green and misty, and the sky darkened. What do I want? Why, I want you, my king. You came to ask me for help to cure the plague in your kingdom. I gave you the gift of life in return for your love. Yet you will only lay with your queen and not me." She laughed, and a trickle of blood came oozing down her chin. "Why not me? Do I reek of the blood I consume from men? Or do I remind you of your darkest pleasures? And then she grabbed my neck, slamming me against the wall, her lips inches from mine. Her breath came out in haggard pants. King Ormond, I demand payment for my services. You owe me a life. I brought up my hands and swung my sword, cutting her arms in half as she howled and backed away from me. I gave you everything I had. Laughing, she replied, You did. But it is not what I want. I want a son, and not just from anyone, but from you. Give me a son. I swung my sword, and she opened her mouth as a huge green snake emerged and hissed at me. I swung at the head, and it broke in half, turning itself into two smaller snakes, coming at me again. She began chanting, and in an instant the two heads enlarged and wrapped itself around me, pinning me down. My sword broke in half. Kuang came to me, lifted her skirt, and climbed on top. I demand a son.
I was counting my blessings. I felt beaten down. I was looking for a calling. Felt lonely in a crowd. I was searching for the answers. Too blind to see the signs. He was always by my side. He shed his light.
My world was always in harmony, from the earliest of ruling from my great grandfather to my father. I had been given the throne as my father's only son to lead my people to peace. I selected my bride, Princess Wilhelmina from the northern winds, and she brought with her the shaman tribe to my land. My captain of the guard, Ulrich, was the man I had trusted since birth as my only right-hand man. When the time came for the crown on my head, the kingdom had mourned deeply for the loss of my father. I now carried the world on my back. The kingdom was split into four corners. The north were the wind whisperers, a part of my queen's family, who practiced the shaman arts and healing hands. The south were the horse riders, and traded goods with us, and sometimes daughters to connect heritage. To the west were the sword makers, who were all blacksmiths and iron miners. But to the east was full of dark magic and sorcery that held a high price for a small request. I was told by my father never to mix the kingdom with the people of the east. If only I had listened, perhaps my story would be quite different today. Queen Wilhelmina. I woke to the sound of the drums beating early in the morning, and I felt my heart sink. It was again the sound of war being called upon our land, and my husband's place beside me had grown cold. He hadn't even made it to bed last night, and it wasn't because of a chambermaid somewhere. It had been talk of blood and war that kept his presence from my arms. My belly was swollen with the formation of our son, a mere 5 months of life growing inside of me, and it took my strength away. I fought my exhaustion as I tried to contain myself around the palace walls. My husband needed me at his side now more than ever. A fortnight ago, a ship arrived at bay, and with it, a strange plague consumed the villagers. Bodies began dropping like flies, and there was a quarantine placed beyond the palace gates. It started out with a fever, and then the lips would begin to dry out, and small spots of red formed over the bodies. And then the loss of stool occurred, until the body gave out and the heart stopped beating. Up to date, 30 bodies have been burned since the ship arrived. My queen, my lady servant said as she entered my chamber, with a bowl of rose water to wash my face. Gemma was smiling as she set the bowl down and turned to help me stand from the bed, bringing me to sit. My queen, how did you sleep? It was uneventful, I said, though I wish it were quite the opposite. Gemma let out a giggle. Your Majesty, your hormones are against speaking in riddles. I blushed and lowered my head. A pregnant woman is I having a moment. Allow me to boast, will you? As she began washing my hands and arms, I felt a deep sadness linger within me. My husband, great king of this land, had always done this job and never allowed anyone to touch me. Yet, now, just a little over a half-year marriage together, and he was already absent from his duties as a husband. His lips gave pleasure more to words of blood and war than to me, his queen and air barrier. My queen, you're quiet today. Is there anything I can do to help your mind be settled? Gemma asked. I looked away and shut my eyes. Gemma, your words bring little peace to my heart by the reminder that I am without a husband at the moment. Do your work in silence. Yes, your majesty. Harsh words for me, I know, but my heart was already bleeding from lack of love for my king. I did not need a reminder from a servant about the absence of it. Breakfast was quiet as the manor was without the king and his men-at-arms. I finished what little food I had and walked out to the garden where the flowers were even shriveled up and near death. It was there that I finally heard the sound of horse hooves and turned to find my husband, King Ormond, arriving with Ulrich at his side. His captain bid me a nod and left with the soldiers, while the king made his way toward me. His handsome face broke into a smile at the sight of me. My queen, you put the sky to envy with your beauty. Where you stand, the rest fade in sight. The winds are cold today. Why do you stand here without a cloak? He asked as he removed the one from his shoulders to put around me. He tied it, and then his hand fell to the swell of my belly. How is my son? Smiling, I replied, He is strong, like his father. Where were you, my lord? The bedchamber missed your presence last night. He touched my cheeks and gave me a soft smile. I was all over the kingdom, trying to find an answer to this plague. No one has a cure, and more villagers are dying. The South has stopped sending medicine for fear of contracting the disease. I am left without an answer. My tribe can help, my king. They are gifted with healing hands. The plague killed 2 of the healers, he said with sad eyes. I just buried them and came here. My heart sank, and I looked away as he took my hands. My queen, the world is frightening right now, and I know not what the future holds. If anything, no. I stopped him from speaking. Nothing will happen to you. You are the king and the ruler of this realm and shall rule for an eternity. I cannot rule for an eternity, my queen, you know that. My son will take my place when the time calls for me. But I need you to listen to me, my queen. If anything happens to me, I need you to stay alive. You carry the lineage to the next bloodline. What is the next bloodline without you, my king? The look in his eyes told me he was uncertain of many things, and one of those things was a cure. The villagers had been in mourning since a fortnight ago, and the cries were all that carried with the wind. No sounds of happy and joyous celebrations were heard. Why was the ship not inspected upon docking? I asked. It arrived late at night, and the gatekeeper had drunk himself into a sleepy state from his daughter's wedding. No one saw it until the morning hours, and when they arrived on deck, no one was present. There were only barrels of overdue wine. There was no sign of where the ship had come from. I shook my head. It's a curse. Don't say that. I dared you. It's a curse. My tribal people believes in it, and if only you will allow us to perform a cleansing ritual, we can get rid of it. He reached for my hands again. I have allowed everything I know of, and nothing has helped. The only place left I have not sought is the East. My eyes opened wide. That place is hell, my king. Don't you dare seek refuge from there. What if it was the only answer for my people? He asked. I am running out of ideas, and my kingdom reeks of death everywhere I go. No one has any answers, and everything I have tried has not worked. Perhaps the East has the answer I am seeking. The East holds nothing but death and black promises, my king. Did your father not warn you about this on his deathbed? He nodded and shut his eyes. He did. But I am without wings to soar, and the wind is whispering me to go east. I shook my head. My king, do not do it. And with heavy eyes of pain, he replied, Forgive me, my queen, but I already have.
Everyone needs a shoulder to cry on. Everyone needs a helping hand. Everyone needs someone to rely on. Yes, everyone needs a friend. So let's come together, celebrate each other, stand united as one. We lift our hands up and pray, lay all our love before Him with all of our faith. He is the change within us, there is a light. Let Him lead the way, lift our hands up and pray today.
King Ormond. My father had warned me of the Eastern people all my life. They were known as witches, sorcerers, and demons. They fed on the souls of humans and used dark magic to lure others in. Their prices were high and cost your very own life at times. But when the plague hit and the bodies began dropping like flies, I found myself riding toward the east alone. I told no one. The eastern wind was brutal, slapping me like that of a whip against my flesh. There were no birds in sight in the sky above me, and when the thunder began to roar, I could hear whispers in the trees. They seemed alive as they gathered down low to catch myself off guard. The dirt roads were flooded from the rain, and it was muddy. The monsoon season had been unkind here, and everywhere I looked, I saw death. The gates that led to the village was left wide open, because they knew that no one would ever come this way. Only a fool would, and I was a fool who had no answers. I could smell something that reeked like bodies hung out to dry. My gag reflex made me want to vomit, and as I rode into town, the eerie silence greeted me. The shops were all left unattended, and stray dogs were feeding on bones left in the streets. There were little lights, and the daylight hours were fading. I got off near an old oak tree where I tied my horse and continued on foot, where no one was in sight. A fog began to fall around me, making it hard to see, as I walked toward what looked like a church at the top of the hill. There were torches lit up, and I pushed onward until I reached the open doors. "Hello? Is anyone here?" I called out. No one answered as I pushed the doors open and walked in. Candles were lit all around, and there was a casket at the front, closed. "Hello?" I heard whispering, and I turned around to find what looked like a shadow that slipped out the door. I ran after, and when I made it outside, the door slammed shut, startling me. "What are you doing here?" I turned around and came face to face with a woman wearing a red turban and a black robe. Her eyes were misty green and very light, and her nails were long and black. She cocked her head to the side, looking at me, giving me a strange sense of déjà vu. I come from, I know where you come from," she interrupted me. "I asked what you are doing here. As you can see, no one from the four corners comes to grace us with their presence in what seems like centuries. You are the first." I walked toward her and showed her my hands. "I am not here to harm you." "You cannot harm me, fool." I stopped walking and she smiled. "Your mind is fogged, if you believe that sword of yours can take away my breath. Here, little things such as sword and arrows are worthless." "What would work then?" She smiled, and as the wind picked up and I shut my eyes from the brutal attack of it, she disappeared before me and suddenly was beside me where she whispered into my ear, "Magic." I whipped around and she was gone again, standing where she was before. "I come here in peace, lady. I seek refuge from you." "It must be a very heavy burden for you to come seeking refuge from us, Easterners. You mortals have always called us demons, witches, and sorcerers. What has happened?" "A strange ship arrived a fortnight ago, and with it brought a plague that has terrorized my kingdom and my people. Countless bodies have been buried, and there is no cure. Healers from the north have tried their work, medicine men from the south, and even blacksmith doctors from the west. Nothing has worked, and my people are dying." Smiling, she replied, "So you came to us, the Eastern witches, to see if we could give you a solution." "I came here to make peace with you. My father and forefathers before him all have denied you access to our lands, But today, as king, I am willing to sign a treaty with you announcing you as my ally if you can cure this plague. And if I cannot cure this plague, what will happen to my people then? Are we still to walk the earth being known as only the bad seeds of time? I shook my head. No, I would still count you as my allies. Who was on the ship? She asked. No one was sighted. She smiled. A ghost ship. How exciting. Her eyes then turned misty and almost glowed. A ghastly tale that has left your village filled with death. My king, what do your people think of you being here, begging me to help you? I walked toward her and exhaled deeply. My people know nothing of my doings, my lady. As king, I am here on my own accord. My people are dying, and I shall go on bended knee if it comes to it to ask you for relief. Laughing, she replied, Bended knee. Why, my king, you speak so eloquently, and words of such plea must be recorded, for the human tongue does lie when the moment of truth surfaces. Fine, record all you wish, but I come here free of any ill will. My father has warned me to stay away from here, but I hope that with this helping hand, we can let the past be lessons learned, and let the future become bright for us all. She walked to me, and a smile appeared. I am Kuang. I've heard your plea, and I shall accept. But the price, will you be willing to gift it to me? I watched her, and then I heard whispering again. The sounds got louder, and when the fog lifted, I saw the many women who dressed similar to her appeared from behind the woods. They were all women, and not one single man was in sight. Where are your men? I asked. Our men? Queen asked as she began to walk toward me, her eyes slightly hooded. Our men have perished for centuries now, my king. No man has walked this land in a long time, and we have had no birth in centuries. The Easterners are all women? I asked, shocked. Nodding, she replied, Why do you think your father warned you to stay away? It was not just because of our power of immortality and dark magic, but here we demand lineage to continue. We demand a child from the man who walks the earth of our realm. The woman began walking toward me, their eyes glowing green and their teeth almost like fangs, smiling at me. The hunger and thirst that presented itself was horrifying, as I reached for my sword only to find it was gone. Are you looking for this, my king? A voice said behind me, and when I turned, she was holding my sword in her hand. With one crush, it turned into ash before me. Quang came to me and grabbed my throat, slamming me down to the ground where I felt the wind knocked out of me. Leaning down close to where our lips almost touched, she stuck out a long, forked tongue and licked my cheek. Mmm, the taste of a king is always better than that of a commoner. The seeds that runs in your veins are strong, and we desire strong bloodlines. I can save your people, my king. I can restore the peace to your village. I can make the plague go away. I can stop the death. She ran a long nail down my arm and laughed. I just want a son from you. Give me a son, and I shall do all my power to bring peace to your kingdom. I swallowed hard, my thoughts swimming with questions, and my queen's face entered my mind. I cannot, my lady. I cannot just leave a son here for you. You would rather your people die? I shut my eyes, and my chest hurt as I thought of the death piling up and the cries of the widows and children. When I opened my eyes again, she was smiling at me, the seduction in her eyes loudly proclaiming what she wanted. Save my people first. Save my kingdom, and I shall gift you a son upon the relief. Kuang smirked, and a laughter bubbled out of her throat. How shall I know you will keep your words? I am a king, and my words are never ones I hang out easily. You can trust me, my lady. If you take away the plague, I shall give you a son.
You came in like a storm with no warning, swept me off my feet. It was a deadly dance, and I knew if I stayed, I would never leave. 'Cause you had my heart in your hands, soft like a summer, and then it was a deadly dance, and I knew if I...
Queen Wilhelmina, have you gone mad, my king? How could you strike such a promise with those people of the East? Have you learned nothing from your father's mistakes? I asked. He was standing overlooking at the village below, where the cries and mourns carried through the wind. I felt betrayed. He was my husband, the one who should tell me all his thoughts, and yet he had done something so unspeakable that I felt as if I could not forgive him. Turning around, he said, "My queen, your eyes hold a deep hate for me. I understand. But as king, I was left with no choices." "The choice was to consult with your people," I cried. "With me." "And what better offer would you have given me?" he asked with anger. "The land plots are filled with freshly dug graves from those as small as a babe, my lady. I have tried everything in my power, and I have failed. The East was the only place my feet had not stepped upon, and my knees had not yet fallen to plead for help. I had no choice, my queen, and so I took what was the only option." I felt the anger rise in me, and I walked to hold his arms. "At what price?" He looked at me with hollow eyes and softly whispered, "A son." I stepped back, shocked as my hand fell to the swollen belly of mine, and a sob escaped from my lips. Shaking my head in disbelief, I stumbled backward, and he reached out to steady me, but I slapped his hand away. "You dare to touch me after you have lain with her?" I asked. "I have not lain with anyone, my queen. The promise to cure my village has not been delivered. I will only do it upon peace." Tears ran down my cheeks, and I wanted to laugh. "That makes it all the better, your majesty. Do you think that you can fool her when you decide to send someone else in your place? You have asked for the ultimate, and now will pay with your life." I shoved at my cheeks. "I do not want you after you have lain with her. It is unclean for me, my king, and my eyes have lost the love for you. The betrayal is too deep, and the wound is too bloody. How dare you, my king?" He came to me and gripped my arms. "Am I to watch my people perish then? If I, the king, cannot even save my people, what am I worth?" I removed his hands from me. "Your worth as a man is the loyalty you give out. That you have lost, my king, and cannot be gained easily. Your people trusted you, and even you had no answer to give. As long as you held true to your own words, they would have loved you all the same. But you went against what you speak of and joined hands with those who are unclean. How shall anyone look at you with honor now?" Thank you for tuning in to Chapter 1. Chapter 2 will be out shortly.
Aren't you tired of the drama? You use your words like they are knives. I don't need that type of drama, and trying to be tough all the daytime. You try to make yourself feel better by taking me down. Once I fell, but now I'm strong, I'm ready for the rematch. Shoot me down, don't you know I get up? Yeah, baby, I will fight. No, there ain't nothing stopping me. I'm bulletproof, I won't fall. I'm bulletproof, go on, shoot me down. I will always get up again. You're looking at me so cold. Get over yourself, are you for real?